You know, the saying, if you can't do it, teach it, is not necessarily meant in a complimentary way.
Exactly.
It's usually referring to somebody who failed at something, so
Sure.
they think now they can. It's like, you know, a music critic that wanted to be a great pianist, didn't make it, and now he's, you know, criticizing all the young pianists. But teaching is, to me, one of the great gifts in life in terms of passing on knowledge that one has acquired. And I'm very interested in young singers. I'm very interested in helping them because I know what it was like to be one, and I know how much it means, every little thing you can learn. You know, there are moments when you think, oh my God, I shouldn't even be opening my mouth. You hear great singers around you. You hear people whose voices you think, I'll never sound like that. You know, we'd all like to be Maria Callas. How many of us are going to be Maria Callas? But between being Maria Callas and being whoever you are, there's tons of room. There's room for everybody. My advice to young singers is, do not despair. Study, study, study. Work on your voice. Don't listen to other people around you and feel conditioned by them. You know, how many times I've walked on a stage in an audition. Even, we mentioned The Godfather before, you know. When I auditioned for that role, there was a girl that sang right before me, and she was beautiful, and she had a gorgeous voice. And I thought, oh well, what's the good of even trying? You know, she's going to get the role. You know, I'll just go in there anyway. But, you know, what do you know? I got picked. So you never know what people are looking for. You never, you know, it takes more than just the voice to have a career. You know, a lot of the people that look like they're the best when they're at school, you know, the A students or the school star, are not necessarily the people that have the careers. Which was, you know, I can say that now. But even Pavarotti said that. He said, and it was very funny, he would use this phrase constantly. He said that when he was at conservatory, lui era la carta igienica degli altri. La carta igienica is the toilet paper. So he felt, when he was studying, that he was like the worst of the school. But look at the career he had. Mm. You know, a lot of times, early defeats, even if you talk to Joyce Di Donato, I mean, she went and gave a beautiful speech at Juilliard, commencement speech, where she talked about the fact that at the beginning of her career, you know, nobody was really considering her. Mm. So I would say to young singers, take heart. Don't be discouraged. We've all had defeats. We've all had moments where we thought, oh my God, I'm not any good. No one will ever take me. But the ones that make it are the ones that persevere, that hang in there, that continue to work hard on their voices, and are determined, because perseverance and diligence count for a lot.
And would you perhaps say also to be prepared to, to coin a phrase, go with the flow? I mean, you never know quite in what direction your career will take you. Perhaps be more prepared. You spoke earlier when we were just chatting before about how singers now had to be more prepared to perhaps do music theatre, to perhaps do a broader range of projects.
Well, I think it's important in today's world to be a little more eclectic in your music listening culture. I realize that especially through my own son, who is a musician, who studied contemporary improvisation and jazz at the New England Conservatory of Music, that I was a total ignoramus about so many other forms of music. Never was this more striking to me, and disarming and disconcerting is probably the best word, was a couple of years ago I had this idea that, you know, all these great jazz people always go and get their melodies from standard repertoire, from Broadway shows, whatever, you know. And nobody had ever taken an opera aria and made it into a jazz song. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So I got an album together, which has come out. It's called Some Like It Lyric. And I decided I was going to take opera arias. I had them rearranged with a few jazz musicians. And I started to sing them. And I thought, uh-oh, I can't sing, something jazzy with an operatic voice. That would sound terrible. So I started to try and sing with what I would think would be a jazz voice. And I realized I had thought anyone that can sing Traviata can sing jazz. Baloney. Jazz is a whole different set of ears. It's a whole different set of using your voice. It's based on rhythm. It's like another planet.
It's a whole different vocabulary, isn't it? They talk about
totally different.
Jazz vocabulary.
It is a whole different set of ears and scales and everything. And we opera singers, we're locked into notes that have been around for 300 years already. We're singing the same thing that we've heard many other singers sing, that there's rarely anything new. But jazz, wow, their ears are a whole new horizon. And I went through what would be tantamount to a vocal identity crisis, because
Really?
I realized that if I sang with my operatic voice, I might sound stupid. If I sang with a jazz voice, I definitely sound stupid because I didn't have one. And I had to sort of find the happy medium. Luckily, I had grown up singing musical comedy, so I decided my happy medium was more the Broadway voice. Take a lot of the vibrato out if you can. Don't try and sing without as much of the volume as I had always sung with, because, as an opera singer, you're using your diaphragm and you're trying to reach the person in the balcony. As a jazz singer, most of the time you have a microphone, and that's a huge difference. Anytime an opera singer is in front of a microphone, we're terrified. It's like, oh my God, it's like we're naked. People are looking into our throats. We don't want that. Our throats are out there, in a big hall, not in everybody's ears through a microphone. Anyway, the album came out. It actually got a lot of critical success, so I was very happy. I wouldn't call it a bestseller, but it was reviewed by quite a few people, and people really liked it. I was happy because even Porsche magazine said it was something you should listen to in the car.
Oh, wow.
Of course, I don't know how many people have Porsches, but...
Wow. I'd happily sit in a Porsche and listen to it.
Yeah, I would too. It's fine. Yes, I do. Getting back to the eclectic, I think young singers today have to be prepared. Even great singers like Renee Fleming have done crossover things. Crossover is the new language. You have to be able to be versatile.
And am I right in, didn't Eileen Farrell, wasn't she somebody who was a fabulous...
Brava. She was a great jazz singer.
Yeah, but what an opera singer too.
Yes.
I mean, my God.
But she grew up listening to jazz, and she had it like, wow. She really had it. I didn't grow up listening to jazz, so when I thought about singing jazz, I was in a panic,
But all the people that we're mentioning throughout this interview and this lovely chat, anyone listening should go away and listen to these people, shouldn't they? Take this on board.
They should. You should listen. I listened only to classical music while I was growing up, and I think it was and Broadway, but it was a mistake. Of course, in the 70s, we all listened to, all the popular music on the radio and stuff like that, from the Doors to Bob Dylan to Carole King and James Taylor and Cat Stevens and the Beatles and blah, blah, blah. And we all, but, I listened to Jimi Hendrix, but I wasn't into Jimi Hendrix. But now I'm more into Jimi Hendrix, and I wish I'd listened more when I was younger. So I think it's important that even opera singers listen to all other styles of music.
Yeah, I feel like that about quite a few, artists of that genre. I wasn't into them then, but I am now. It's interesting, isn't it?
But don't you find that even in singing, so many of the things that people told you when you were younger, you weren't quite able to absorb them at that moment of your life because you were too worried about other things. And then as you get older, they naturally come into focus.
Yeah, that's right.
So a lot of young singers are so terrified about getting out in front of an audience and having the audience like them that they forget, too, that they're out there to enjoy themselves. to enjoy the performance. You know, when I think back on how many performances I was so worried about if I was sounding all right.
And I think that comes also from a lot of, you know, the nature of the world we live in now, you know, because of the constraints with money and things like that. In conservatoire, you're having to get through hoops all the time. You're having to pass this exam, prove yourself all the time. You know, there's not that sort of organic way of developing. So I think that's right. That
also,
you know,
even getting into schools now,
Yeah.
conservatories. I mean, it's so complicated.
Yeah. And so people forget, you're right, about enjoying themselves. And that's often what I do with singers. Say, can you remember when you first sang as a child? What are your first memories? We take away the joy. And I think that's a shame. Not deliberately, but it just kind of gets lost somewhere.
Yeah, if it starts to feel too much like torture, it's not good. It's not, you probably should change. You know, being a singer is a big decision because nowadays you also have to think about economic aspects. Will you really be able to support yourself as a singer? Yeah. And what does that entail? And what else do you want in your life? I mean, there are a lot of hard questions. Are you ready to be on the road? Even if you're a pop singer or something, you know, it's bus and truck tours. You're on the road a lot. You go home after a performance, you're in a hotel room alone.
Sure. I know one of my loneliest experiences was doing a tour in America because I just never knew where we were. We were on a bus, we were doing a show, you come off and then you don't speak to anyone, you know, so...
And sometimes you've had really great performance and, you know, you go back to your empty hotel room and you get on the phone to your husband or to whoever else, you know, but it's still, you know, there's a lot of... it's not an easy life. There are sacrifices.
It's certainly not for the faint-hearted, but I wouldn't change anything for the world. Would you?
You were asking me before about what my next step is.
Yeah, exciting projects now. What's yours?
My most exciting project right now. Well, I have a few. One was the record that I did, which was an exciting project. The project that is taking up my time now is getting other people to sing.
I heard that. Are you outside La Scala getting people to sing in their lunch hour or something? I heard something from somewhere.
No. There's Corriere della Sera magazine. It has a supplementary magazine called Io Donne, and they asked me to do a workshop to get people to use their voice to get rid of their stress.
Wow.
And I have believed for years that this is my calling. I feel like it's a vocation for me. Because I think that singing is so good for us. Singing is so good for our bodies, our endorphins, lowers our level of cortisol in the blood. It's, you know, there's oxytocin comes into play. There's all sorts of scientifically proved medical benefits. You know, using your respiratory apparatus, your diaphragm, oxygenating, improves circulation, posture, everything. And nothing makes us feel better than singing. It didn't never matter what else was happening in my life. I would go to sing for an hour, and it cleanses you. It just clears everything, and you feel so much better. And I decided that this is my new calling. I want to keep going with these workshops. I want to get people to come in and realize that if they use their voices more, because our voices are our strongest means of communication. And strangely enough, it's the thing that people are the most self-conscious about. People are extremely timid about not only just singing, but even their speaking voice a lot of the time. Because, you know, even businessmen who have to make speeches or professors or whatever, sometimes people have brilliant things to say, but the way they speak, you know, their sentences are all sort of mumbled, or they drop the endings of their word. So, you know, there's all sorts of speech defects. Of course, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now is that people come in and they say, I'm tone deaf, I have no voice, I can't sing. And I say, okay, we're not here to audition for La Scala or for Britain's Got Talent or X Factor or whatever. We're here to get in touch with our voices, because everything that happens to us during our day is transmitted through our voices. You know, when your girlfriend or your mother or your brother or whoever calls you, all they say is hello, and you already know what kind of a mood they're in. Why? Because everything that happens to us emotionally comes through in our voice. If we're tense, if we're angry, if we're frustrated, if we're happy, it's our voices that betray our emotions. So when people use their voices and get it out, they're getting out so many of their emotional tensions and stress. So this is my new calling, getting people to use their voices to get rid of their stress.
That's fascinating. Yes, because I think often people, I know from doing summer schools and workshops, it's about being heard, and often people feel they're not heard because they can't use their voice in the right way. So it has a very profound
Well, singing's a great way, though, to get people to feel that they're being heard.
Exactly.
And singing, there are people that have problems in other areas of their life, but they get on a stage and they're fine. You know, even people that have had problems like, stuttering. You know, I remember there was this kid in high school and he stuttered terribly, and then he got a role in Oklahoma and he didn't stutter once, and he had a big role. You know, it's amazing how the voice connects us to so many other things in our life.
I mean, you were talking about things that have been proven. It's been proven that singing helps children with their maths in school and
music.
It's fascinating.
You know, Oliver Sacks has done a huge amount of work on how music affects the brain. Even if, I remember I taught my son his telephone number, 039669022, whatever. Or, in America, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why do we learn the alphabet singing? Because the part of the brain that memorizes music is different than the other part of the brain that memorizes everything else. Why is it that we can remember words to songs from 30 years ago, but we can't remember what we had for breakfast or for dinner last night? Because music is a whole different world inside of our brain. And singing, as singers, we are so lucky that, everybody has a voice. But we have a special instrument. God gave us something beautiful that we can use to give pleasure to ourselves, but to other people mostly. I guess the one thing my biggest piece of advice to young singers is, remember that when you get on a stage, you're giving a part of yourself to the audience for their enjoyment. You're making other people enjoy themselves. It's like if a guest comes into your living room at home, you want to give them your best meal, you want them to have a good time. So when you get out to sing, you're singing for them. You're wanting them to be enjoying themselves with you. And if you put that kind of a sentiment, not, oh my God, what are they? They're not your judges. They're your friends. The audience are your friends. They're not your enemies. So just remember that and get out there and be nice to your friends. Give them a great time,
I think that's a perfect
ending
place to end this, and I hope we can have more conversations because
Teresa, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for
fascinating. I mean, I've just enjoyed this so much. Thank you for your time and your wonderful advice and energy, and
good luck, and thank you for what you're doing for young singers. It's so important.
Thank you.